All right, seventh year over Rev fans. We have another phenomenal show for you today. Some really dynamic and unique individuals coming on today with an amazing program that they've developed over the years, along with my co-host John McGrath here at my side. As I always say, he is McGrath, John McGrath, the James Bond of podcasting. But with that said, I would love to introduce our new friends of the show, Diesel and Tiffany Lodder. And while that name may not have the same ring to you as like an Emerson Fittipaldi or a Roger Penske, these two are doing fantastic work helping out the military veterans and connecting them in the motorsports industry through their program, Operation Motorsport. So without further ado, I would love to introduce them. Diesel and Tiffany Lodder, thank you for coming on and welcome to the Seventh Gear Over Rev show. How are you guys doing today?
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for having us on.
Well, we are more than thrilled to
and John.
Absolutely. We were more than thrilled to have you guys on. With me not being a military veteran, however, my grandfather was, I have a keen interest in our veterans and certainly with everything going on in the world these days, there's a lot to be said for trying to help out the military veterans. So I guess my first question for you guys is when and where, how long ago did this idea come in and how did it come to fruition? I mean, how did this go from an idea in your head to putting it all together and having it come to where it is today?
I'll start by just saying that I'm a 35-year veteran. I was in the airborne for 35 years, retired in 2015. And I had an exit plan out of my career. And that exit plan included motorsport. So Tiffany and I partnered in a motorsport event management company in 2012 and made a lot of connections. And fast forward to 2016, I'm a veteran, and a mutual friend says, let's go to this awesome event in the UK in a place called Anglesey. I had no clue where this place was. All I knew was go to the UK, sounds good. Watch racing, sounds good. Helping veterans, sounds even better. So we made a trek over to the UK, planes, trains, and automobiles, and made it to the literally you do the red eye flight, you rent a vehicle and you make a 6.5-hour drive to this isle called Anglesey, which is on the Irish Sea on the coast, and literally all there is there is sheep and tourists and this racetrack next to a military base, and a great organization called Mission Motorsport was hosting there. I believe at the time it was their 4th annual Race of Remembrance. And they were at the end of their training year, taking all these beneficiaries that they had placed into different activities and inviting them to this event on the coast, and inviting race teams to come and race in this 12-hour event, which is basically a remembrance service that has a race around it. So it's based on remembrance, the same weekend as Veterans Day over in the UK, and they do this 12-hour race, and it's with Mazda MX-5 Mazdas and little Citroens and things like that. But it's pro teams and it's multiple driver and all that good stuff. And they have a heroes dinner. And at 10:45, they red flag the race, and all 50 cars stop on the front straight, and the drivers all get out, and the crews all get together, and they pin their medals if they served on their chest, on their fire suit, driver suit, and they don their berets or headdress, and anyone who's still serving puts their dress uniform on, and everybody forms up on pit lane. And they do a full remembrance service where they lay wreaths and they have speeches and they, the last post and everything else. And at 11:15, after the minute of silence and everything is done, James Cameron, the CEO of Mission Motorsport, says, let's go racing. And they go back and finish off this 12-hour race. It was just the most moving thing I'd ever experienced in a 35-year career of, having to do that every year, once a year as a soldier. But everybody there, they were there because they wanted to be there. They had a common bond outside of their service. Although they all served, they now had a new calling. And so when we left that event, I said, you know what? We need to bring back folks from North America to compete in this event, and not because of the competition, just because of the effects it has on people and the whole service thing. And so we went back and said, we'll come back and do this race. And a couple of months later, what happened was instead of just bringing a team over, we founded Operation Motorsport. So, truth be told, I'm a believer in not reinventing the wheel. I just prefer to steal the car. And James Cameron said, whatever you guys need, you have it. I want you guys to be successful. And so we came up with Operation Motorsport. I mean, that name took a while to get to us, but it was kind of fitting as the sister charity to Mission Motorsport, and having the same mission they did. And coincidentally, operations have no beginning and no end, and the service that we offer to our beneficiaries in recovery has no beginning and no end, which makes it very, very unique. And fast forward 5 years, because we're entering or ending our 5th year. I think it's pretty phenomenal where we've come in that process. We've gone back to Wales 3 times. In 2019, we placed 3rd in class at the end of a grueling 12-hour. We've gone racing with Liam Dwyer, and all the things that go with that. And we have some pretty amazing partners, and we have some awesome stories, and it's all about moving forward.
Wow. What a phenomenal story. And just that whole idea of that first event that you went to, that time of remembrance halfway through the 12-hour is, I mean, I was moved just hearing the story. So when you got the idea and you're like, we gotta make this happen here. So what were the initial steps that it took? Because now, I mean, just looking at your guys' website, you've helped a lot of veterans out and connected a lot of them with a lot of motorsports teams and series and tracks, throughout the U.S. and Canada. So obviously, you gotta crawl before you can walk, before you can run, helping out all of these military veterans. And by the way, thank you so very much for your service to the country. So that goes without saying. But what were the initial steps like? Was it easy? Was it harder than you expected? What kind of hurdles did you have to cross?
Very painful. I can say that with truth. So we did really have to crawl before we walked. Crawled and made a lot of mistakes, a lot of boo-boos. But we did learn a lot, like Diesel said, from Mission Motorsport. The 2 years that we went back to race with them, integrated as part of their team, I went ahead as the quote advance party and spent a month with the Mission Motorsport team. So like Diesel said, Jim Cameron just said, whatever you need, just take it, download anything you need from our documents and take them with you. So the first time I was there, I learned a lot, and I could see, you can only absorb so much when you're at an event because it's so dynamic and there's so much that's going on. But when I went back and spent the time with the team, I stayed with Jim and his family at their house and got some crazy rides to and from the office in his Porsche 911 at early mornings and up and down those beautiful English countryside. But I actually got to go to a lot of bespoke events, is what they would call it. Just some stories that they were covering, newspaper articles, magazine articles. The second time I went, I was part of the the Jaguar launch that they had of the car. And when we went to the factory at 4:30 in the morning, I'll never forget, because we had to stay overnight, and they launched this car and it was stuck to the outside of the factory, and they unveiled it. And it was this livery car that had all these poppies all over it that shone in the night. And it was the Mission Motorsports livery team, the 4 guys that worked in there that had worked on this car to get it to be like that. And then it's just like all of the factory workers came out and they stood there at 6 o'clock in the morning, and there's this big crane up there, and they pulled the actual wrap from the car off so you could see it. And it was just like, oh my God, I think I'm going to cry just looking at this stuff. So it was just some of those things that you see how it impacts. It might not be a big deal, but how it impacts each individual veteran's life. It's just, I can't put it into words. And it's the same thing when we go to an event. I can tell you all this stuff, but until you actually go and see how a beneficiary changes from the Thursday that they arrive at the event to how they smile and how it's a genuine grin and a laugh and a punch in the shoulder to the other guy by Saturday or Sunday. It's the reason that I work 40 to 50 hours a week as the volunteer executive director, because I believe in the program and I've seen what it can do for veterans, beneficiaries. Sorry, I'm going to get choked up here. and I've seen the difference it's made in Diesel in the last 4 years. He won't admit it, but it has. It's given him his own purpose because he's now able to use connections that we've built through our own business and turned around and helped others come up from behind him. So yeah, that's it. Sorry.
No,
it's
I'm
okay.
going to add something to that. In that, the listeners may not know about us, and that is anybody could have had this idea. Any veteran getting out and doing their thing could have had this idea, but we sort of have an unfair advantage to most of those people in that we had about a 5 or 6 year head start, in that we already, as individuals in our professional life, had a reputation within the paddock. I could go to John Doon, and if you look at the car behind me, the MX-5 Global Cup car, the person responsible for getting that car over to Anglesey, because that was our car in 2019, 18 and 19. John Doonan personally made sure that Mazda took care of us because we were helping, his driver, Liam Dwyer. And so, Ben Devlin was involved in that process. And that's where the car ended up at one point. And he helped us. And that was all made possible through these connections you make in motorsport, that greater race family that takes care of itself and others within the race family. If I had been anybody else that walked up to John Noonan and said, I have this great idea. I want to embed veterans and transitioning service members who are, broken, and I want to put them in a race team. I would have been laughed out of the paddock. But I think when you have those people that already trust that you know what you're doing, it certainly gives you an unfair advantage over someone else.
I agree with you 100% on that. And it's one of those deals too where, and it's funny, I was thinking about this as you're telling the story. Actually, my crew chief on our Pirelli World Challenge car was talking about the same thing, because he's a military vet, and he had actually come to me about 2 years ago. He said, it'd be really great if we could put something together where we could bring veterans into a racing program. And lo and behold, here we are talking with you guys, and you're doing it. So that's awesome. But now when you decided, okay, we're going full steam ahead, right? We're going to make this Operation Motorsport program fly. How did you start connecting with the vets? I'm sure you had some advanced intel on how to get in touch with those guys. Did you go to them? Did they come to you? How did you guys connect, and how did that all get off the ground?
It was a little bit, I want to say it wasn't easy. And to this day, truth be told, we have a more difficult time in Canada than we do in the US. We were very fortunate in that, and I'm going to throw his name out there, Greer Martin, who's a member of the House in North Carolina. He's a motorsports fan and a great friend of mine. We became friends because he, as well as a paratrooper, he happens to be a JAG in the reserves. In the nice. Airborne reserves of all things, and his connections in North Carolina, of course, his base would be Fort Bragg, which is, on any given day, 110,000 people call Fort Bragg the place they go to work, between that and Pope Air Force Base. And the USO, which is a great organization, services that area. The North Carolina, USO of North Carolina services that area, and through Greer's contacts, we were able to make contacts with the USO and present this idea. And that's what got us into the base, into the warrior transition battalions, is what they called them at the time. And those were the folks who were waiting to medically transition out of the military. So again, a bit of an unfair advantage, because we now had a direct link to who our beneficiaries are, basically our customers, if you want to call it that. But these people we wanted to help, we were now sort of endorsed by the USO. And again, if we were any other organization that didn't have the backing of the USO, there's an awful lot of red tape to getting in front of these people. You know, the military legal system doesn't, you know, give out any of that information to just anybody. But if you're a trusted commodity by the USO, things start to happen. And I think that's where in the US, and through the USO, we were able to make those connections directly and have an impact. And getting through that very first event at VIR, which was our first US launch, we were able to at least get, I believe it was 4 or 5 beneficiaries into teams in the IMSA paddock. And from there, of course, you learn and you grow. But it was getting that first event, and then things just started to happen.
It's amazing.
How
when you start the process with somebody that approaches you or somebody that you approach, and sort of maybe fitting them where you think they would be best at, how does that whole process happen for somebody coming into the organization that you're helping out?
First, they go on to the website and they would fill out an initial beneficiary interest form, and it then comes into our environment and it sends out a link to 4 of us on the executive volunteer staff. Goes to our beneficiary trustee, myself, and 2 other people. So Craig is our beneficiary trustee, and he would open up and he looks at it, and then he would reach out to the individual and say, "Hey, John, I saw your interest form," and it's got pertinent questions that we can sort of figure out how the conversation is going to start. And he would ask you a little bit more about your interests, why you're interested in us, and then just sort of formulate how we can work together if we would be a good fit for this individual. And then we share that information amongst us and decide, I guess, how to move forwards. I would say half of the people that apply are interested in our e-motorsports program, so part of our diversionary therapy program. And if that happens, then we pass them off to the program managers over there, and then they can get them connected with iRacing and our e-motorsports. But if they're interested in the motorsports immersion program, where they're actually embedded with the race team, there's a lot of conversations that have to happen, and we have to vet them to make sure that they actually do have a disability. So we ask for a lot of information just to make sure that that's correct. And then like this past weekend when we were at St. Pete, there was Diesel, myself, Craig, and we went to the SRO race and talked to all of the potential teams that we're going to work with for 2022. And we had a list of 12 of our beneficiaries. So we have John, and he's got some engineering skills and he wants to be a race engineer, but he doesn't have this, and this. So, you go to the teams that you think might be looking for that and say, "This is John, this is a little bit of his background. What do you think?" So when we talked to a new team, actually this past weekend, he said, "How about, this is what I'm looking for. I need somebody who can use their initiative, can help to manage the team that's around me because we're brand new, and can see the things that we're missing and not afraid to go and fix it." So we're like, "Oh, okay, well, we have this girl, her name is Jane, and she doesn't really know, she's an air traffic controller. She doesn't know what she can do, but she's got some really good skills. So we're going to interview her first, tell her what your needs are." And then the new team said, "Okay, that's great. Can I talk to her prior to the event to see if we're going to be a good fit?" We're like, "Yep, sure, that's great." So that's sort of how they'll connect, so that there is no surprise when she's going to show up on site. We would also share with the team, as long as the beneficiary is all right with it, what their needs are, what their medical conditions might be, what some of their, I don't want to say disabilities, but some of those things that you need to be aware of, what those might be, just so that there's no surprises. This year we're holding another online event. So everybody who's going to be activating at SRO will join us on a Zoom call, and we're going to run through, these are all the expectations. This is your travel, your accommodations. This is what to expect of the team. Here's your Motorsports Academy 101. You need to do this. You need to sign all your waiver forms and just answer any questions so that there's no surprises. Because you can imagine what kinds of things that you don't know. So, when you said, how did you guys grow? One of the first big mistakes that we made, not thinking of it, is sometimes communication is not clear and you don't want to assume that the person knows anything. So we had one of our beneficiaries go to VIR to an event, and he was embedded with a really great team. He thought he was going to a car show. So imagine his surprise when he was embedded with the team for the weekend working on a Porsche. He's like, I thought I was going to a car show. So that was a big learning thing for us. And we strive to make sure that the beneficiaries know exactly what they're getting themselves into going forward.
And to your point, I would imagine that makes sense, especially, you know, if it's a military veteran, and Diesel, obviously, you know this, and John, with your background, you know this as well. And in the racing, communication is key, right? You have specific directives, so to speak, you know, specific communication. And to your point as well, Tiffany, if that's not on point, you know, out of the gate,
Kevin,
then things can happen.
Kevin, you cut out there for a good 5-7 seconds.
Sorry about that. I'm not sure why that's the case, but my point is all about the clarity of communication. You know, whether it's the military folks, the veterans, I'm sure they're used to that, and that's what they expect. And if it doesn't happen initially, you know, that's a learning opportunity, as you guys learned. You know, not necessarily the hard way, but it could have been much worse. But wow.
Yeah.
So
the one thing you don't ever want to do, and I'm not sure if it was Diesel, I'm not sure who taught me this, but it was, you never want to let them down. Like, you don't disappoint them. They've been disappointed by being medically released through no fault of their own and through no plan of their own from the military. And the last thing that we want to do as a veterans advocacy is to disappoint them or let them down again. So we work really hard to make sure that we don't, and that the expectations there are met, and that they know what they're getting themselves into, and that none of this costs them anything. It's all provided through either the motorsports immersion or through the diversionary therapy program.
Is there any?
I think the person that person that taught you that lesson was Dwayne Crawford, I believe, who was our first beneficiary trustee, and that's what he said. Dwayne was he was actually at our very first VIR event, and he said, if there's anything you can take away from this, whatever you do, don't disappoint these people, because that's what the military is doing to them. Their career is coming to a sudden stop, and they're being disappointed by what they thought was going to be the rest of their lives. And now they've got a bit of a sour taste in their mouth. So you don't want that to be the next taste they get when they actually leave the military against their wishes. In most cases, these guys don't want to leave. So don't disappoint them. And so thank you to Dwayne for providing that life lesson to us.
And looking at the lives that you've touched with these veterans, obviously all the stories are great, but can you tell us anything or anybody specific, a specific success story that really stands out amongst some of the others?
I will tell one, and I'll let Tiff tell one, because I don't think we may not have the same success stories. You know, one of my personal favorites is Theo, and Theo came to us on the Canadian side, very young, aerospace engineer. So we had a degree in aerospace engineering, was in the Air Force, and he was still serving air traffic controller. And like I said, young lieutenant. And so if he's a lieutenant, he's not very old. And he struggled with a lot of mental health issues, and not to get in any great details, fairly severe, but serving, came to us and said, I want to do this. And he had a bit of a background. He did SAE in university, so he knew a bit about motorsports. And we managed to get him onto I believe it was FAF at the time, FAF Motorsport in 2017 or 18. And he then joined us and came to Wales in 2018. And his goal was to become a race engineer. And along the way, we didn't know how this was going to, turn out for him. He struggled a lot. If you go and watch the video, actually, that you spoke of earlier, that 6-minute video, Theo does talk about his own mental health issues and struggles that he still, faces every day. And the success out of that story is that Theo did go back and he actually completed a master's degree, a 2-year master's degree in aerospace engineering. And he is now employed as a race engineer with Tooth Autosport in Calabogie. He's got last I checked, he's got a girlfriend and his life is moving along. He loves to do the iRacing program, and he was our beneficiary that completed the pilot program for our Academy driver development last year. So we raced in a Miata up in Calabogie, and he will be licensed and he will come to Wales this year and be one of our first beneficiary drivers in the Race of Remembrance. So, how's that for a success story?
That's fantastic.
That's a great story. All right,
Tiffany, what about you? What's your story? Let's hear your favorite.
Just a minute, I'm wiping my eyes here.
Oh.
No, Theo he's the same age as our youngest son. So Theo's been with us since 2018, and Diesel's right. Like it's a little bit heart wrenching when you deal with them, not like on a weekly basis, I guess. And we've known Theo now since May, when he first approached us in May 2018, just when he knew he was getting out. And it's not that we're a really huge organization, and it's not that we're really small, but I think we all pride ourselves on knowing who these guys and girls are that apply, and I keep in touch with them. So this year it's a little bit more difficult because we've grown so much and our beneficiary trustees taking care of them all. So I feel like I'm losing that little bit of a connection. So I think it's important that we still try to understand everybody's story. And I could tell you so many of them. I mean, we had a girl that broke her femur in a jump, and she was going to be medically released because her leg was broken, and then she was on this medication that wouldn't let her be deployable anymore. And she just used us as a stepping stone, I guess, to find her team strength again. And she fought the military and she won, and she got to stay in. So she's now continuing on. She's got her jump. What do you call it, Diesel? She's an instructor. I'm saying that wrong. Sorry.
A certification.
We had another. Yeah, so she's a jump master. Thank you. We had another girl that had breast cancer, and she was medically released, but she was with us on and off for 3 years as she went through that. And she came and did a whole bunch of different teams within Michelin Pilot and then within IMSA. She was successful enough that she went into the SRO series and worked over there. And she also got hired on by a team in IMSA. So it's like some of them are really good and some of them stay with us and go through the program and find employment with other teams, but some of them don't. They just use us to find their strength again and to continue on their own recovery, whatever that may look like. And that's what we're supposed to be for. We're not an employment agency. We're a recovery program through motorsports. So it's really rewarding to see them come in, because they're not supposed to come into the program and stay forever and ever. They're supposed to work through the program and go into the engage, which is the last part, and turn back around and help their buddies behind them come through. So we have a lot of alumni, and they just sort of come and go through there. And it's hard because it's like when your kids leave to go to college, you're like, wait, I'm not ready for this yet. But, that's part of what the success is supposed to look like. We had a young guy, and this is the last one. Oh, sorry. I could tell you about Dwayne. Yeah, I'll tell you about Dwayne. So Dwayne, like Diesel said, was our first beneficiary in 2017, one of our first US ones. And he went to Corvette racing, and he was like this shining star. Everybody loved him so much. Dwayne has the best positive attitude I have ever seen on anybody. And everybody loved him on every team. And he ended up going to Action Express as a beneficiary for 2 years, and then they hired him. So now he's been hired as their tire guy and has worked through a couple of different positions through Action Express. And it's just, he does it because he can. He says, the minute this stops being fun for me, I'm out. But I don't need the money. I just enjoy the team and the reason that we go racing. So
that's awesome. And you guys, speaking of your Further success with the program, you guys made a big announcement regarding Skip Barber. So tell us more about that.
That was something that I had talked about actually years ago before I even knew the guys in Skip Barber. Something I alluded to earlier was our different programs and Operation Motorsport Academy is something that still we're working through that and in Academy. We've got something called Motorsport 101 where we're going to deliver education to these folks that apply as beneficiaries, so they're not sending them blind anymore. They get all the terminology. They know what all the positions are. They have just enough information that they can be a little bit dangerous. And part of that, we've got an Motorsport 101. So we have a Thursday night league that isn't broadcast, where anybody who's never iRaced before can come in and do that. And then we've got driver development. And in Canada, it was easy with Tooth. We had that, but in the U.S., we knew we had to find somebody that was, across the U.S. that could help us deliver that. And we had a by chance that we had a common with Skip Barber, a common sort of partner friend, and that was Resilience Racing. And Resilience Racing is all about finding ways for folks that are missing limbs to go back, so hand controls or other things. And they were working with Skip Barber, and so we were at Skip Barber, Tiffany, the CEO, and they said, we'd love to have somebody on your program join us in the paddock. So when they went over to SRO in the TC America series, and the Skip Barber's got a number of entries into TC America. We had an individual by the name of Dustin Burkhalter, who was their first beneficiary to go to them, and he literally was a shining star. Another one of these guys that was still serving, was going to be medically released, happened to be an EOD tech, the bomb guys. Yeah. And he did a fantastic job, tires and fuel. Yeah. For Skip Barber Racing last year through the entire season. And as the season came to a close, Dustin was then his date to be medically transitioned out of the service and be a veteran was November 15th. And Skip Barber offered him a position within Skip Barber at their VIR school facility. And I think it was a couple of days after Dustin was medically retired, he was packing up his stuff and moving everything he owned to VIR, and he's currently there. And so fast forward to PRI late last year, and we met back up with everyone from Skip Barber and sat around and talked about this and said, this is really, and they agreed that they would like to take it to the next step and what we could do together, et cetera. And so the announcement was made on Tuesday of this week officially that we have now entered a partnership with Skip Barber Racing School moving forward. And with that, they become our official driver development side of things, and we're their official charity. And they've got these awesome ideas. And I think there's a lot of surprises that are going to happen over the next, 6-12 months with Skip Barber, and how we're going to work together to further our program and help them further their programs and how they give back to the veteran community. So it's a great story.
That's great news. I'm super happy to hear that. So as we're talking about this and the placement of these beneficiaries with different teams, so just to help the seventh gear over fans kind of understand, when you've vetted a potential beneficiary, how does that work with placement of teams? Do they typically, is it like a trial where you say, okay, we've connected with Resilience Racing or Tooth Racing or whoever, and then we're gonna connect you guys for the weekend and see how that goes? Or is it just like you vet them and you send them off to a team and they say yay or nay for however long? Or is it a progression? It's like they do a trial for a weekend, see how it works out, and potentially they hire it. How's that work?
Yeah, no. So like I told you when we talked earlier about how we vet them and that we vet the team they're going to go to and connect them up. It's important for your fans to understand and everybody else that when we put a beneficiary into the team and they're embedded, there is an event coordinator on site for the entire race weekend. So an event coordinator can only manage 6 beneficiaries. That's all that we think is fair so that our time can be dedicated to them and their needs. So we would walk the paddock and first of all, we pick them up at the airport. We do all the pre-work. You don't need to know that boring stuff, but we pick them up at the airport. We make sure that they get to their team, make sure their introduction's okay, that they're comfortable. And then throughout the rest of the weekend, we would check on them. So I come back and say, hey, Kevin, how you doing? How's things today? What's your job? Did you eat breakfast? Good. Okay, so everything's all right. Like you have to make sure that they're okay, that their needs are taken care of, like Maslow's hierarchy sort of thing. Did you eat? Did you drink?
Right.
Did you get a good sleep? I'm serious because some of these guys and girls won't. They'll be like, it's 124 degrees out here and you're sweating. How are you feeling? I'm fine. Are you really? Because you don't look like you are. So it's part of like almost like being a mom. So you have to take care of them throughout the weekend. When the weekend's over and everybody goes home, Monday they're back in their own house and sometimes they hit a little bit of a rock bottom. And I'm sure you can understand that from any event you go to because you're excited, the adrenaline's pumping, you're having an amazing time. And then you turn around, go home, you're like, oh crap, I'm just back to my normal. So that's where it's really important for us that one of us reaches out to them to make sure that they're okay. What's our next steps? And did you have a good time? And by the way, here's your after action report that I need you to fill out for me so I know how your weekend went. And it asks very specific questions so that we can find out if we failed them in any way, if there's other things that they would like to do, if they were not a good fit with the team, what their whole experience was like and how can we make it better? Do you need to change teams? If so, why? But on the other hand, we also get the same information from the team. So it's just for the team, it'll be like 5 questions that we would ask them so that the beneficiary would continue to be a good fit from the team. Because the last thing you want to do is keep pushing this person into the team where they're just clashing with everybody because it's not a good experience for anybody. So we've had some beneficiaries that have had feedback from the teams that they've worked with on personal development, and we've coached them on it, and it has made a difference. So I was really happy to see that because it's one of those uncomfortable conversations that you have to have sometimes. And it's, we're just a volunteer organization. I only have my coaching skills from being in retail for 20 years on how to coach people to sell stuff. So, it's like I have to put on this hat and help this person understand some personal development that can be really uncomfortable at times. But I'm thankful for the growth that it's helped me to grow and also for this beneficiary because I know it made a difference for him in what he's trying to do in his civilian life. So that's sort of how we make sure that everybody's in the right place.
Let me just add, I think 45 minutes into this, a major fail on our part in this discussion was that, we really should have at the very beginning said, our core values are team identity and purpose. And so that's the part of this question I think would have been easier answered because we are a recovery program and not an employment agency. What happens to medically retiring individuals is they get pulled out of their team. They get told by the medical side of things, you no longer have universality of service. You can't be a soldier anymore. So we need to pull you out. And for a lot of them in the last couple of years, they end up spending their days at home in sweatpants because they don't even come to work anymore. They come in to report and say, yeah, I'm still well. So they completely lose that team, everything that they've been part of. So they also lose their identity because, sweatpants has now replaced a uniform with badges and all kinds of things that give you a personal identity of where you belong. And of course, for every service member you train for your purpose, that's what you live for, your purpose in life, your station in life. And then they've lost that. So the first thing that we do is when we talk to a team, we make sure they're very clear about what the expectation is. They're assigned a purpose, but when they get to the team, that's the environment they want to get back. So they're introduced to the entire team as who they are, where they're coming from and why they're there. So the team understands this new person didn't just, magically appear, but they've got a story. And the team gives them a crew shirt. So to our detriment, you can't tell who the beneficiary is, but that's part of the program. They fit in. So that new identity is that team that that surrounds them and helps them and now mentors them and understands that they're going through a recovery process and then gives them a purpose. And that purpose could be as small as just wiping down the car every time it comes in off the track, or cleaning tires, or any other thing that they are given as a task, and they learn. This is not always about turning wrenches. It could be helping with hospitality. It could be digital media, taking pictures. It could be working in tech. It could be PR, marketing, anything that happens at the racetrack where they understand that they have transferable skills, not necessarily what they did in the military, but some of those skills that they've learned, whether it was leadership skills or organizational skills or trade skills, do definitely transfer over into this world of motorsports. Because let's face it, when you take teams and you are traveling from all over the country and you fly in from everywhere and you all need a place to sleep, eat, and you have a common goal, and that's to get that race car on the track, whether win, lose, or draw, but you do it as a team. Doesn't that just sound like what soldiers do when they deploy overseas or on exercise or whatever?
The structure, yeah.
Yep, it's the very same structure that they feel comfortable with. So that's what we do, and that's the expectation: team identity and purpose.
And it's, I was drawing similarities with, what you guys are doing for the vets and their experience, whether, their military team and their brothers and sisters, in the field, as well as what they're being embedded in on the race weekend, and then Tiffany, you made the point about, checking in on them the day after, because you come down from that exciting, dynamic, adrenaline filled weekend, and it's kind of a downer. And I think the same thing, when I'm on the road teaching for one of the different schools, and the guys, my brothers, my sisters, my teammates, it's like we come home and it's like the day after, it's this big, everything kind of comes down, and it's almost like, I tell my wife, give me a couple of days, because it's like you're reintroducing me into the wild here, into the regular world. And I'd imagine there's a lot of similarities there, but that importance and that connection of something, in through racing that they had in the military, I can only imagine is so important. And especially with so many of these veterans coming back with, whether it's physical or mental issues, from the battlefield, those injuries, those things that they're trying to recover from. I'm sure that's as close to that organization, that team, that family that they had when before it was kind of taken from them through no fault of their own.
Right.
Yeah.
So over the years, how many beneficiaries would you estimate that you guys have put through your program that have gone through it?
I would, we were thinking about that because we have to do our 5-year review coming up, where we're going to have all those numbers. And the issue we have in some cases now is that there are growing numbers of folks that come to us through diversionary therapy. And that's our new Patriot Corral program, which is going to run at all the SRO races, where active service members and veterans can come and join like-minded people in a car corral atmosphere at a race, not necessarily embedded in a race team, but just a place to go and maybe get out of the dark places, network with some like-minded Mustang fans, or Corvette fans, or Porsche fans, or whatever it might be. And so the challenge we have is that we touch so many of these people that the numbers are quite astounding, just from race weekend to race weekend. But some of these people are not applicants as far as beneficiaries go, and same as the iRacing side. So the actual numbers of actual beneficiaries that have applied and been placed in teams is north over 70 individuals over the 4.5 years. And I think this year we'll probably get close to 100 beneficiaries in total that we've actually embedded in purposeful recovery that, that we actually help them through.
Wow, that's an impressive number. And kind of along those lines, now that you're going through that or coming up on that 5-year review, and you just had this great announcement partnering with the Skip Barber School, what are the prospects looking like for you guys pumping people through this recovery and diversionary program in 2022? What's the forecast?
Sorry,
Kevin,
Kevin,
I'll
leave
cut
that
out
to
again.
Tiffany.
Kevin, you kind of cut out there for another 3 seconds there.
Doggone it. I think it's the Russians playing cyber stuff here.
Probably.
At any rate, I was just asking, with you guys coming up on the 5-year review and looking at, the numbers that you've put through in the past, what's the forecast looking like for Operation Motorsport for 2022, especially in light of the new announcement with the partnership with the Skip Barber Racing School?
Well, I'd like to report that since we've been talking for the last 55 minutes, I just had a brand new beneficiary apply online. So I'm like, are we live or something? Like, is somebody listening to us? Yay! It's hard to say, really. I mean, if you looked at, Diesel will tell you that we had 72 applicants last year, I think, but part of our growth plateau, I suppose you could say, is just like everybody else's, because through COVID, we couldn't activate as much because the paddock wasn't open, and so we couldn't have an event coordinator on there. So in SRO, SRO is amazing to work with. We would be able to have an event coordinator as long as a person could be assigned to our team. So we work very closely with Kevin Boehm Racing, partnered with him and CrowdStrike Racing. So they would let our event coordinator be assigned to the team so they could stay there and look after the beneficiaries. But it also made the bubbles had to be very, very small. So that's why in 20 and 21, we couldn't do as much. So sort of in the end of 21, we were able to do a little bit more. But looking forward to 22 is where we see our growth. So that's why I said, we have between 10 and 12 beneficiaries activated in the SRO paddock. And that's a maximum we can stand right now, because that's 2 event coordinators, and we just don't have the staff bandwidth to take on anybody else, unfortunately. And so same thing for IMSA, so it's a little bit different there. Through FEL in Canada, we have an event coordinator that can do that. So that's our focus. My focus right now for March is to try to find some new Canadian beneficiaries. And I'd like to we have 3 right now waiting in the wings. We have a couple that have moved on into the alumni program. And so I'm trying to, figure out where everybody's got to fit. So it's just a little bit more of discovery, I guess. And then trying to get in front of anybody who is interested is harder, like Diesel said in the beginning, because of the privacy and the not being able to get in front of anybody for the last 2 years to go on to the actual bases in Canada and say, hey, we're here, this is what we're doing. So it's a bit of a struggle, but I'd like to see 8 brand new Canadians. So far we've got 3. So I have some work to do ahead of me on that end. I'm pretty happy with what we've got for SRO. What do you think, Diesel?
I'm always glass is half full, and I'm always looking to grow, et cetera. And the goals we had before COVID were to grow from 3 beneficiaries embedded in 19 to 6 in 20, and then 9 in 21 and 12 in 22. So now we've made this giant leap, actually, and we've gone from 3 in SRO to 12 this year potentially, and all of what goes with that. I think we end up maxing out at some point, but sure, somewhere between 12 and 24 beneficiaries, across the big series is probably where we'll end up, because beyond that, you start to not be able to deliver what you're promising. You start to get watered down and thinned out. And we also realize that, to bring this to a broader audience, we are going to expand the car corral programs, for instance, and all that diversionary therapy, and maybe more education. And there's other things like with Skip Barber, there's discussions of us when they go to somewhere to run a school for a week, if that's near a base, what we're going to do is bring out a group of individuals to that, and whether they're active service or potential beneficiaries, expose them to motorsport, at a racetrack, and then see where that goes. So there's a lot of other potential growth outside of just through the race weekends.
Wow, that's you guys have an amazing program. Now, I know we're coming up against a hard stop for you guys here, but as has been sort of talked about throughout the show, you've made some references to beneficiaries, trustees, things like that. You guys are a 501c3 program, to your point. So how do people support Operation Motorsport?
You can go directly to our website and donate on the website. So it's www.operationmotorsport.org. There's 2 different buttons there because we have 2 different boards, and the money stays within the country that it goes to. So there's a Canadian donation PayPal and there's a US donation PayPal. We are privately funded through donations for everything that we do. We also do some fundraisers throughout the year. We have auctions that we do where we have like driver suits, paddock banners, team gear, Corvette racing stuff, Mobile One things. I'm just trying to think, Porsche, all kinds of memorabilia and items that get donated to us so that we can use to raise funds for the program. So we do that. We also have a very generous board member whose name is Fabio Napoleoni, and he's an artist, and he was very instrumental when we first started. He did a painting or a drawing for us, and then gave us all of the money. So he had an original that was done, and then he did a limited number of sign-in numbers, a limited number of APs, and then he just gave us all of these OE, so original editions, and we could sell them. Here you go. You just pay for the paper that they're on, which is minimal amount. He donated it to us, and we got all the money from it. So without Fabio, I'm not sure where we would have been, because that first initial $5,000, like, holy shit, I can do a lot with this. Oh, sorry.
No, it's all good.
It pays for.
I knew we'd get one.
It pays for accommodations. You knew he'd get me. It wasn't bad. It was just a poop emoji. It's no big deal. So we covered their flights, their accommodations, any transport that they have, and the SRO for the series will covers their credentials. So really the team only has to worry about paying for their meals, their t-shirts, their crew shirts, and giving them a sense of purpose in a new team. So that's why everything is really important, that we have the right donations that come through to us. And we have 2 campaigns that we're going to be running this year. One will be at the end of the year for our Giving Tuesday, and that's where our silent auction will be online, and you can check that out. I don't have the information for it. Yes, I'm still working on building it, but our other one will be for when we go to the Race of Remembrance, and we're going to have a campaign that's to put your hero's name on our car. So if you were to go to the website, you can see the Mazda that's on there, and it's got everybody's names on the hood. So we did it in 19 to help us raise funds to send everybody over, and it was $25 a name. And one of our board members donated a substantial amount of money to make sure that all of our beneficiaries that we're going over, that their names are actually on the car. So it doesn't have to be somebody that's passed on. Like my grandfather's name's on there because he served in World War II, and I did that because it matters to me. Diesel's name is on there. Our oldest son's name is on there. A lot of our beneficiaries' names are on there, and that's just people, just random people that you would meet at a car corral or that you were talking to, and just say, this is what we're doing, and we're trying to raise money for that. They're like, cool, how do I do this? So this year, what I'm working on is a text to donate program or campaign so that we can just do that, but I'm just not sure how to do it so we could capture the right name and the rank and everything to go on the car. But so I think just to follow us on Facebook, our Instagram, our Twitter, check out on the website to see how we're doing for the campaigns would probably be the best way.
Fantastic. John, anything for the good of the whole here before we let these fine folks get on with their day and their amazing work?
I just want to say, and I'm not a veteran, but I have a lot of friends who are, and I'm not going to get into too many stories or anything like that. But I do want to say thank you so much for what you guys do. It's an amazing program, and I can't wait to share it with our audience to get the word out there even further. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thanks, John. If there is
absolutely.
anybody in your listening world that is interested and or knows somebody that is a medically released veteran or wounded, please go to the website and click on the application or the interest form, and then just start the conversation with one of us here, because it's important, and it's much easier if you can share it through word of mouth.
Absolutely.
100%.
Thanks, John and Kevin. This has been a lot of fun, and thanks for having us on. Obviously, this is what helps the program grow. Educating people out there. So again, thank you so much for having us on.
Well, we certainly appreciate you guys, and again, Diesel, thank you so very much for your service, and to both of you for the fantastic program that you guys have going. You are clearly trending upwards, so to speak. But you got an amazing program. We are more than grateful to have you guys on today and be able to share the mission of Operation Motorsport. And once again, Seventh Year Over fans, you can go right to their website, operationmotorsport.org. To check them out, see the video, see Diesel in his element, as well as Tiffany and some of the beneficiaries that they've helped over the years. So, and we can talk more offline, because we'd love to have you guys back again to kind of maybe get an update here as the season goes on, if you guys don't mind doing that, or maybe we can connect at a racetrack somewhere during the course of the season. But like I said, maybe we can talk more offline. We would love to be able to help get the word out for Operation Motorsport, or on a personal note, maybe there's some way that I can help you with your program with my expertise as well. So we're here to help, and we're grateful to have gotten to meet you and become friends, and to be able to share the story of Operation Motorsport. So thank you both very, very much.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin. Want to come to Wales?
I would love to come to Wales. My passport doesn't expire for another few years, so I'm so in. I love it. See, there's an exclusive right here on the Seventh Year Over Rev show. Invite to Wales. Love it. All right, you guys. Well, I know you got a busy schedule ahead of you, so we will let you go. But thanks once again for all the time today, and the great news and the great work that you guys are doing there with Operation Motorsport. So thank you very much. Best of luck, and we will talk again very, very soon.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Good luck, John.
Thank you.